Ha ha. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Somebody let me know. Well, I got four people I can see here. Let me know if you can hear me. Sometimes technology just kicks my butt. And it's one of those nights. I'm telling you, first I logged on, I started my live video. If you see some comments coming up like I can hear you now and it's from Lessons from the Waiting Room, it's because my husband is the moderator downstairs. Earlier I logged on. I logged on as myself, not as Lessons from the Waiting Room. And if you're just joining us, if this is the first time you've ever joined us, I realize I've never introduced myself. I'm Kim. This is my page, Lessons from the Waiting Room. It also goes along with my blog called Lessons from the Waiting Room. We also have a YouTube channel called Lessons from the Waiting Room. So, if you're just passing through for the first time and seeing us, this is kind of just something I do for fun, something to unwind. And speaking of unwinding, I put a question out here. What is your favorite thing to do to relax? What's your favorite thing to do to relax? There's no judgment. My counselor asked me that this week, and I was like, oh, I don't know what I do to relax. Besides come home and fall on the couch and watch TV. What's something you do to relax? So, why don't you put something in the comments? I'm going to need you guys' feedback this week. I'm going to tell you I'm having kind of a mindless Monday evening. And I'm hoping to get some feedback this week. So, chime in, let me know that you're here. If you're joining, chime in, let me know you're here. I see I have people on here, but I just don't see who you are, and I'd love to be able to see who you are. If you have any questions, want to contribute to conversation, I'd love to hear what you have to say. I'm wanting to know what your favorite thing to do is to relax. And so, let me think. What is my favorite thing to do to relax? Oh, besides chilling out and watching a movie or something, I would say I really enjoy sitting on my front porch when it's nice weather out. I sit out there with a cup of coffee or something, sit on my porch swing. It's very relaxing to me. So I'm going to try to build that back into my schedule, especially here in the fall, because it's just really nice. So I'd love to think it would be helpful to other people. Let's hear what you do. Hey, Jason. Jason, tell us what you do to relax. Hey, we were just talking the other day, and he always wants to know that he's supporting me. So I really appreciate you, Jason. Appreciate you supporting me. Appreciate all of you guys who tune in, and hopefully it's beneficial to you. Hopefully it's fun for you. All right, more people chiming in. As you're chiming in, what do you do to relax? That's the question that we're asking. So put your comment in as to what you do. Maybe you can help somebody else come up with a good idea of something to do to help them relax. Build cool stuff. Jason, I know, and we're going to talk about when you're going to come up here and rebuild our deck, because that's on my list, and we'll throw in some visit time while you're here. Maybe give you a free place to stay, just because you're family. So, anyway. Watch TV. I'm with you, Ryland. I like to watch TV. Recently, my husband and I started watching a little bit of Ghost Hunters. I know, that's kind of like it's an interesting show. So, anyway. Okay, well, what I wanted to jump into this week, I've been thinking, one of the theories I've been learning about in my counseling class that I'm currently taking, the theories of counseling. And let me just tell you, if you ever, lounging in the pool, putting the kids down for a nap. I would imagine that's what you do to relax, Taylor. Putting the kids down for a nap. Um, so talking about theories, common theories, man. If you ever want some riveting reading, and I'm saying this sarcastically, um, I have a wonderful book that you can read. The theories of what is it called? Theories of Counseling and Psychotherapy, where we talk about um, all kinds of different therapies and what their approaches are. And so, anyway, one of the things I was studying this week was narrative therapy. And I got to thinking, like, some of this is kind of cool because as a person, I love to learn about people's stories. I don't know if you like to as well. Yeah, Richard Parsons does like to go for long drives. On purpose, not that we get lost. Walk in the yard. I'd love to walk in our yard, but we got to be careful because we have dog mines everywhere that are lurking in the grass, and you just never know what you're going to step in. So walking in the yard is one I have to be careful of. But this got me to thinking about the stories that we tell. And I asked myself, I always start off with like asking myself, what does this mean? So I asked myself, what is a story? So why don't we do this? Why don't we take a second here? I'm giving you guys another interaction question. I want you guys to give me your little definition, quick little definition. What is a story? You know, in the English language, we have words that mean a lot of different things. Don't Google it. Those of you I know, some of my family, you're watching, you're going to cheat. Don't Google it. Tell me your best definition of what is a story. Okay, so pop it on in there in the comments. We'll give you guys a minute here. What's a story? Okay, so we know in the English language, there's lots of words that we have that mean a lot of different things. So when we talk about a story, it could mean several different things. And there's no right or wrong answer here. Well, I can't really say that because that's like saying everybody gets a trophy. There are some obvious wrong answers, but, I won't call you out. If you want to be goofy, you can be goofy. But I had a typo. What is story? What is a story? Anybody got anything for me? Okay. Well, I'll tell you when I did look it up, so I did cheat. But you think about story, we have different words for what a story is. It's a statement, a little short of truth. Okay, a little short of truth. Mom, did you look that up? Because that really sounds... Okay. Recounting of an event, real or made up. Okay. It's like we're playing a game of Balderdash here. I don't know if you've ever played that game. I love that one growing up, Balderdash, where you get a definition or get a word, and like you don't even know what the word is, but you have to come up with the definition of it, and then everybody tries to guess which the real one is. And my family, we love to make up things. So Balderdash, if you haven't ever played it, it's a great game. You should play it sometime. So there's several definitions that I found for the word story. It can be an account of imaginary or real people and events told for entertainment. So we already see some of that already. A plot or a storyline. A report of an item of news in a newspaper, magazine, or broadcast. A piece of gossip or a rumor. A very long explanation of facts or fiction. Very good. A false statement or explanation, a lie. An account of past events in a person's life or an evolution of something. Here's another one. A situation viewed in terms of the information known about it or a similarity to it. Another word would be narrative. We probably hear this word thrown around, especially when it comes to the news. And there's a lot of different perspective behind pieces of information, and how you put those pieces of information together tells a different story. So we could pick up several different newspapers and see the same picture and come up with some different stories. I want to see if I can share my screen here real quick. This is something new. I'm going to show you some pictures. And I want you to see if you can think of a story. Now, these are some pictures. Let me see if I can share my screen. That I took when we went to West Virginia. Where are my pictures? Okay. Let's see. Hopefully you can see my screen. All right, so here's a picture. Can you think of a story? Is there a story there? Obviously, this leaf has a story. There's a sequence of events that have happened that have caused this leaf to change color. There's chemical reactions that happen. There's different stages of life that this leaf goes through. Okay. Can you guys see these pictures? I think so. I think you can. Okay. So let me go back to the next one here. This shoe. Obviously, there's a story here. We don't know what it is, but as soon as I saw this and snapped a picture of it, my mind went wandering. Why was this shoe on the banks of the Potomac River? It's a little dress shoe. Did it fall off someone's truck? Was someone walking? Were they camping? And my mind went to worse scenarios because I watched too many crime shows. Okay, there's a story there. There's a sequence of events that led that shoe to get to where it's at. Here's another one, maybe. To me, there's a story there. Something happened that caused this tree to grow up over rocks, which is really interesting because the rocks had to have been there first. So there's a sequence of events in that life, in the tree, life of that tree. All right, let's see. This picture, this used to be a bridge. This is, I guess, an old canalway or something where we were at. There's a whole story that was behind the purpose of this bridge, even though all we see are the remnants. People who crossed over it, lives that were changed because of it. I could make up my own whole story based on my perspective of it. I could give it meaning that's really not even there, but none of us would know. There's a story here. This was some of the walkway here that we saw. Some graffiti on there. I don't know what they were trying to explain. If this person was unhappy, if that's why they painted this. If it's a gang sign, I don't know. This is another one of those towers. There's actually a big vine growing up it. I think I only have a couple more here. This guy right here, I look at him and I think of a story. He starts off as one thing and he ends up as another. And this little guy was moving fast too. Every time I moved, he kept following me almost. Like he was chasing me. But he goes through a whole sequence of events to become a moth, I believe. Or a butterfly. And this one was one that got me. There's just something to me when I see like trees growing out of rocks that I'm like, I know that rocks break down into soil and all of that, but I'm like, it just seems like the most unique place for it to grow. And I think that might have been the last one. Okay. All right. So now I'm back. Looks like a ghost. Yeah, so when I'm looking, see, yeah, you guys were were thinking of storylines of all those different pictures that you saw. So each one of those things, we could have come up with a different narrative for each one of those pictures. So as I've been reading about narrative therapy, some of the things that they say from a narrative approach, a narrative therapist looks at life as a series of stories. And to an extent, I think that's true. You and I, our lives are made up of a series of stories. Now, some of those stories are more dominant than others, and some that aren't as dominant have contributed greatly to who we are today. I think of in my life, there have been stops all along my way where I'm thinking, here's the main plot line of my life, here's where I want it to go, and yet down here are little times when I was cleaning houses and scrubbing rich people's toilets, and I'm like, how does that have anything to do with here? Or there's a time when I almost drowned when I jumped on an alligator float because it was too flat and I landed right in the middle and I couldn't swim. And I'm thinking, where does that meet up to here? But obviously I remember it, so it was impactful. So in our lives, our lives are made up of a bunch of stories. And at some point, there are different connections from one story to the next, to the next, to the next. And this becomes a broad storyline, a plot line that we can see. And a lot of times we can't see it until we look back. I think this is really interesting because this is obviously secular theory that I've been learning, but when I think about that, I think about when I look at my life, there are little isolated things that happen at the time that I'm like, okay, God, where does this fit with this? And I can't ever see it. And then I get 2 more dots down, and I still may not be able to see where this dot connects to 4 dots back, but I wouldn't have gotten to here without being here. I don't know if that makes sense. But I know this is nothing new, but it's something that to me was just really, really interesting. So there's some events, some stories that are more prominent or dominant, while others we'd call alternate stories. They're less dominant, but they still are very important to who we are. So, then there's thick stories and thin stories. So thick stories are ones that we've gone over and over and over and over again. And so you're probably familiar with this when you have a relative that tells the same story over and over and over again. Each time they tell it, it gets bigger and bigger. And now, I don't do that. I don't embellish. It's really how it happened. Now, my family may say something different, but those thick stories are ones that we've told so many times that there's several layers of thickness to them. So I was thinking of a thick story in my life. I was always an awkward child. I just was. I'm an awkward adult too, but I was an awkward child. Big gaps between myself and my siblings. And my sister was throwing a birthday party for her boyfriend at the time. And I must have been maybe 9 or 10. And I'm playing on the side of the house. Well, yeah, on the side of the house where I had there was this tree and this really, really cheap rope swing. Like the plastic rope that's all like you can get like the little splinters of plastic stuff. It's just really cheap. And there was a plastic disc that you'd sit on. And so it was really close to the house, so I could sit on that disc swing and I could push off the side of the house and I'd push off the side of the tree and I would just be going all around. I was just having a good old time and I'm spinning and going and I didn't know that my hair had gotten caught up in the rope, and so it had twisted and twisted and twisted as I'm going having a good old time, and then I got to the point where it was like caught up onto my head. And so I realized I'm in trouble because I can't get it out. And so I'm standing there and I'm screaming and I'm crying and I'm no one's hearing me, no one's coming out to help me. I'm scared and you know, and then at the same time there's people coming to my sister's boyfriend's party, and they would pull in the driveway and I would stop screaming. And I'm just standing there with this swing like caught up in my hair all the way to my scalp. And I was so afraid, but I wanted help. And I don't know how long I stood out there, at least until somebody realized that I wasn't in the house. And finally they come out. They have to cut my hair all the way to my scalp because I gotten caught up in that. And to this day, if we talk about it, my family's like, I don't get it. I don't get why you didn't just, like, it's one of these things that it has always stuck with me. I don't know why, but it was so monumental to me. I don't think I've ever gone on a rope swing since because I was traumatized by that rope swing. But that is a thick story in my life. So there's stories that we tell each other. You guys know this. You sit down with your friends, your family, you recount the funny times, you might recount the sad times or stories that you tell yourself, you tell each other, you relive these things and they bring back such emotion. And especially when you have people that were there with you and they remember it maybe a little bit differently. But once again, we all have different perspectives. But then there's the stories that we tell ourselves. And this is the hard part. This is the hard part for me. Because we try to make sense, internally, we try to make sense of the things that we see around us. And a lot of times we do this when we're little. So there's things that aren't always explained to us when we're little. And we see things that happen and we try to make sense of why this happened, or we make assumptions. Like, for example, you go to, when I say the term librarian, you think of a librarian, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Well, there's a stereotypical librarian figure that we get in our mind, that they have the glasses on, they're probably an older lady, or they have their hair up in a bun and they're always saying shh, right? Because that's how we think of librarians. But not every librarian is like that. That's just how we think of a librarian. That's how we have, maybe at some point you've seen it on TV that way, or you've seen a librarian that way. But that's how some people call them schemas. These are how we take information and we apply it, so that now when I think of a librarian, I think of that older lady with the glasses on, probably with the chain from the glasses and the shh. Okay, so that's kind of what we do in our lives, as we take these things that happen around us and we form our thoughts and perspectives around this. This is why you have people that might have racist tendencies without even knowing that that some of what they do can come across as being racist, because it's never been something that has been explained as to why don't black people and white people marry? Okay? So there's some things that, like, we take that we've always seen or we've always heard. We may not always have an explanation, but we accept for ourselves until we're able to think for ourselves and to look at truth from a true source, which is really the only true source ultimately is God's word. So I'm just giving those examples. Now, when we try to make truth of the things that we see and understand, we might think some things. There's sometimes we're going to tell ourselves lies. Just flat out lies. Like, nobody loves me. That's a flat out lie. Monsters Inc. Like Wazowski. Jason, you cracked me up. And then there's things that may not be a lie. There might be some truth to it, but it's not really a founded, it's an assumption. All right, so let me throw some things out to you. See if you can identify, and maybe if you think of one, you can throw it in there. Some examples of stories we tell ourselves. My kids have made bad choices, which means I didn't teach them well enough. Now, let's think about that for a second. You may not have taught them well enough. I mean, if we're just honest, but are you responsible for your kids' decisions when they get out of your house? No. So there might be a little bit of truth there, but it may not all be true. Here's another one. I was seen and heard as a child, so I know my thoughts matter. To me, I think that's a positive one. I think that's one that a lot of people, especially people with low self esteem, struggle with. Here's one. People have betrayed me in the past, so I can't trust anyone. Well, is that true? If people have betrayed you in the past, can you trust anyone? That's the belief that you hold because you've been burnt in the past. Here's another one. No one talks to me in a crowd of people, so I must not be all that likable. Does it mean that you're not likable? Maybe. I don't know. I don't know you. But then again, just because people don't talk to you in a crowd, maybe they're not comfortable going and finding other people to talk to. I don't know. Can you guys think of any while you're out there? Are there any things that you could think of that could be a story, whether it's there could be some truth to it? These are just some things that I thought of, things that I could see myself thinking of, because there's times that I'm having these thoughts and I'm wondering, well, how do I know if that's true or not? Because I might actually be annoying. But so the question is, so where to go from here? There's stories that we tell each other, we have fun, we laugh at it, we all have different perspectives, we have different narratives. And then there's stories that we tell ourselves. So are they truth? Are they a lie? So what do? How do we know if it's a truth, if it's a lie? So my next thing was, so where do we go from here? Well, the thing is if we don't like our story, where we're at, what we've seen, how the dots connect, then it's time to change the narrative. It's time to look for ways to change our story. So how do we do that? Well, first we do that with God's help. We seek his face and seek his will and truly evaluate our lives and say, okay, is this really where I need to be? So we seek to change the narrative by making other choices, by making by choosing to see things from a different perspective. One thing that I found very helpful to me, because sometimes I feel like I used to be a great gauge of people, and then since I've realized how much I struggle with anxiety, I realize that I actually attribute a lot to people that they don't even think. Like I'm thinking for people and I'm thinking they automatically think something about me, which is really kind of selfish because not everybody's thoughts are tied to me all the time. But they looked at me that way. They must be thinking I'm an idiot. They know I'm an idiot. Oh no, here we go. So what I've started to do is I have found certain people that I know will tell me honestly, not what I want to hear, but what I need to hear. So I can say to so and so, this is the read I'm getting. What's your take on this? Am I off base here? So find some people that will tell you honestly, like, yeah, I think you're reading into this. I don't think that's how this person meant it. Um, I think you're putting too much on yourself. So find people that will help you with the narrative, help you see straight. And then my last thing was learn who you are. Um, who does God say that you are? You are a beloved treasure to Him, even if you don't know Him. You are beloved enough that He would send His only Son to die for you so that you could live forever if you accept Him. So you are beloved, you are cherished. You're not perfect, you've done wrong, but there's forgiveness when you mess up and when you do wrong. Um, we actually all deserve worse than we would ever get. But God, in His mercy, offers a way for us to get more than we could ever earn. Um, so, learning who you are, seeking to change your narrative, and doing that by finding people that will help you and be honest with you and help you understand the right way to come from. So I want to close with a story here. I know I'm getting close on time, and then I want to share a fun song on our way out since now I've learned how to share the screen. So for the longest time, if you guys have read my blog at all, you probably know some of this. For the longest time, I've wanted to have a child of my own. That's kind of been, I always kind of view that isn't that part of the purpose of getting married? You have your own family. That's what everybody does, right? And oh, it's so easy for everybody. And so I got this perception in my mind that things needed to happen by a certain time, and then when those dots didn't connect to be the story and the plot line of my life, I started to believe some things about myself. That, oh, I must just not have enough faith. Oh, I must just not be doing things the right way. Oh, I must not be praying the right way. Oh, I just need to be happier for other people when they get pregnant, and then surely that will happen. Oh, if I just make sure that I do this and this and this, then God can't help but give me what I should have. And there were a lot of things that I started to believe and perceive, really innocently, I think, based on what I had learned as a child of, like, God rewards faithfulness, God rewards, and those are all true things. But somehow my perception and how I pulled it into personal belief was that I somehow controlled God's goodness by what I did or didn't do. And so as time and time wore on, I started to become very upset and very hurt that God was not allowing this to happen. Okay, God, you've put this desire in my heart and yet you won't let this happen. So what does that say about you? So I started to develop some plot lines of how I viewed God. That really, while I knew in my head He was trustworthy, I didn't see it in my heart, and I didn't accept it in my heart that He was trustworthy, because He has the power to do things, and He's given me a desire in my heart, and yet He's chosen not to do it. So is He really trustworthy? And then there were a couple times that I thought maybe my prayer had been answered, that the Lord had allowed me to get pregnant, and then it was like no, and no explanation. And so I took that to mean, okay, so God can't be trusted, and now I certainly can't make myself be vulnerable to pray and to really pour my heart out in this way, because God is not to be trusted. Everybody else can trust him, but I can't. And so I will tell you, this has been a long and hard battle for me, that because there are things in my life that, while I've seen God do certain things, it's still not quite where I want to have seen him work. And so it's still a struggle for me. And maybe that's you today. Maybe, you're struggling because you haven't seen God work in a way that you really thought would bring honor and glory to him, because we know what's best, right? I mean, come on, God, if you would just let this happen, you'd get all this glory. So why aren't you doing something by now? So often I just know that I get myself in over my head, and I think I know what's best for me, and I don't. And so I have to be careful about the stories I tell myself. Um, the stories I tell others, I want the stories I tell others to be reflective of how God has connected those dots together. Um, and hopefully, I'll be able to share some of that with you next week. Um, I got some big news to share for next week, but I'm going to save that for next week. So you're going to have to tune in next week to find out what that big news is. So what I want to leave you with is this song, now that I've learned how to share my screen. It's called "You're a Man of Your Word," and this just gets me going. So I want to share this with you, and then I'll say good night. But this one will get you going. Let me see here. Okay, somebody was saying test. Okay, somebody was saying you can't hear it. Okay, well, the name of the song is "Man of Your Word," and if you want to it's a good clean the house song, but it's a reminder that if God said it, he'll do it. He's a man of his word, and all things are possible if we believe in him. There you go. Thank you. Richard just posted that. So, hey, if you wanna hear an encouraging, oh yeah, I love it. I love it. It's such a energetic song, but it just reminds me, and it's good every now and then just to watch people enjoy worshiping. Um, just no bars hold. So that is a great song if you want to check out "Man of Your Word." So check that out this week. And next week, I look forward to joining you, talking to you about some exciting news. And then coming up here in a few weeks, I think, I'm going to be having a special guest coming on to talk about some much needed message now. So thank you guys so much for joining me. I hope you guys have a great evening. Check out this song. Thanks again, as always, for your support. I really appreciate it. You guys just, you don't know how much it means to me in this endeavor to have you guys tuning in and to support. Pass this along if you think it could help anyone. And I will see you guys next week. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Bye.